What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. Time for another episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit. Today, by request, not the Skill Monkey. No. The Skill Gorilla. Trained in everything at level 1. A build that can really be taken apart and built back however it is you want, to be the jack of all trades and be the master of the majority of them. Remember, if you're liking what you're seeing, to like, subscribe, ding the bell, stay caught up on all your stuff. Remember, there's a Google Sheet and a bunch of other cool rewards waiting on the other side of Patreon. Let's dive in. Alright, so what you see is what you get on this one. Everything you need to know is written on the tin. We are painting with a broad brush and then filling in your choices, so that way as you level, you can personalize this kind of build for what you want to play, what your party needs you to play, what that campaign is throwing at you, so on and so forth. And thus, as I often say, there are a million different ways to skin this owlbear. Not counting lore, there are 16 skills in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. At first level, to be trained in everything, although again, there are a billion ways to do that, here's how we're going to. For today, we will be playing a rogue. A rogue receives additional skills equal to 7 plus their intelligence. We will begin play with an intelligence of 18. Additionally, rogues are trained at stealth. Mastermind for our racket today. This was almost Eldritch Trickster. We're free Archetype. Follow this card right up here if you need any more reason to try that. If you are not free Archetype, instead go with Eldritch Trickster, choosing Cleric. Mastermind, of course, gets us trained in 2 more skills for our background because we were dangerously close to a Cleric of a Tech God, and because I think if we're going to pick backgrounds, we should talk about these rare ones, Mechanical Symbiosis. Ostensibly, you are Iron Man, except your core can talk to you. This gets us trained at Arcana and 1 additional skill in which the clockwork entity is well versed, determined by the GM, which sets us exactly at 16. Additionally, since rogues get skill feats every level, we'll take skill training at level 1. To become trained in the skill of our choice, we'll choose lore of the plot, essentially, and that rounds out the whole list. And then lastly, before we dive into the meat and potatoes, today we're playing a half-elf. Half-elves get some cool skill-related things, humans get some cool skill-related things. We're just leaning right in. For our ability scores, we'll start out with a strength of 10, a dexterity of 12, a constitution of 12, an intelligence of 18, a wisdom of 16, and a charisma of 10. This particular incarnation of the Skill Monkey is optimizing around rolling the recall knowledge things and our wisdom-based skills, that is to say medicine, nature, religion, survival, and that secret 5th skill that's not a skill, but my one-y brain informs me is a skill, perception. We won't be as damagey as some other rogues are. We won't be as sneaky as some other rogues are, but we're going to know all of the things which we can then pass out to our party to help our party make informed decisions. Nimble dodge first because our armor class is going to be a little bit lower than everybody else's. Having the reaction to pad out armor class seems real good. Then minor magic. We will eventually have access to the arcane and divine lists, so occult or primal could give you some different cantrips, or if you just want Ray of Frost right now, also fine. Even if this is just innate, like, guidance and light, that seems good too. To quickly talk about our free archetype, because it's going to come into play on the other side really quickly, we will be archetyping Cleric at level 2. Our deity is the Imperial Lord Zols. And then at level 4, we will select Domain Initiate, choosing the Knowledge Domain. So by level 4, as a reaction, when we attempt a perception check to seek or a skill check to recall knowledge with a skill we're trained in, hey, that's all of them, we can roll the check with advantage. Incredibly useful as you're like picking through the plot, looking around dungeons, whatever it is you happen to be doing, to make sure you know all the information that your party needs to know before the barbarian goes through the door, screaming blood for the blood god, greatsword in hand. Next, we'll take Magical Trickster so we can sneak attack with our like Divine Lance and other things eventually as well. Cantrips probably become our general mode of attacking as we are leveling up, moving through though. Again, we're gonna have wizard slots. There is no shame in just hucking a fireball in. There's less shame in hucking a fireball in when you know that trolls don't like fire. To further lean into the skill stuff, next up we'll take Predictable For one action, choose a target, make a perception check to sense motive against the foe's deception DC or a hard DC of the foe's level, whichever is higher. We're real good at perception, so this should be real easy. On a critical success, we gain a +2 circumstance bonus to AC against the creature until the start of our next turn, and a +2 circumstance bonus to your next save against whatever it is they're doing. Same thing on a success, but +1, nothing on a failure, critical failure, -1 on the things. Again, our armor class is not going to be as good as some other rogues because our dex is kind of poopy and we don't ever take armor proficiency. This is our back to the wall feat. Inspired Stratagem next. As a reaction, assuming you spent 10 minutes during your daily prep talking to your friends, assuming everyone did their daily prep in the same room and like you don't have an assassin in the party whose daily prep is go sacrifice the horrible people of the city to insert edgy assassin god here. When one of your allies is about to attempt attack roll or skill check, they roll with advantage. They become immune for a day, but this is passed out to up to 4 allies, which is probably your whole group. In a smaller group, you might even grab the ranger's wolf. You're pretty darn good at nature, so that makes a lot of sense. You should definitely be able to Inspired Stratagem to help Fido fetch the leg of the skeleton. As I often say, this build is a really good 5th party member. Everyone's happy that you're here. This is one of the many reasons why. As a human, you knew you'd see us take multi-talented. The half-elf bit doesn't really play in. It's fine. At level 10, we took basic wizard spellcasting, so here we'll take expert wizard spellcasting. Then next, instant opening. For one action, pick a target within 30 feet. It's flat-footed against your attacks until the end of your next turn, because probably at some point we're going to have to help our friends hurt things. Much like that Sheeran Psyop mechanic I made not too long ago. Follow this card if you like Starfinder. At level 16, a feat I absolutely hate, but that's why we're talking about it and why we're taking it. Reconstruct the scene. You spend 1 minute surveying a small location, such as a single room, to get an impression of events that occurred there in the last day. This involves moving around the area, studying footprints, placement of objects, spilled drinks or blood, and so forth. You get an indistinct mental impression of the significant events that happened there. This gives you clues and details of the past, including the overall events and their time frame, but it's not a perfect record. This also isn't enough to identify who was involved in these events if you weren't already aware the person was there. As determined by the GM, you can also pick out various seemingly small details that could serve as important clues, which is why I hate this feat. GMs just give them the information if they're rolling high enough on the skill checks. If the information is important to advance the plot, but the players can't find it because they don't do a certain convoluted set of things you want them to do, or the DC's so high that they have to 19 or 20 it, and then the adventure stalls because they did not get the information, that sucks for everyone. Just give them what they need to know. But I do like this feat because it has very big modern Assassin's Creed flavor when you're doing the investigations and stuff. And a really good GM will be able to take this and weave really, really interesting narrative stuff in with just this feat. It turns out a very large portion of GMs are storytellers. It's me, I'm storytellers. I have an occultist in 1st edition who liked to use object reading on items, and I would just use it for the same way. If you give me half an excuse to tell you a very convoluted backstory about what the bad guy is doing, I'm gonna take it. In the hands of a capable GM, this feat will do same. Then Master Wizard Spellcasting, then Quicken Spell for our Cleric list. On the Archetype side, at level 2, a Cleric Dedication for Zols, then Basic Cleric Spellcasting, then Divine Breath, then Expanded Domain Initiate, choosing the Ambition domain. This will grab us Blind Ambition for 2 actions. Within 60 feet, a target makes a will save. Nothing happens on a crit success. On a success, the target takes a -1 status penalty to its saving throws and other defenses against attempts to coerce it, request something of it, or use mental effects to convince it to do something, such as the suggestion spell, all of which is available in-house for us eventually if we choose the right wizard spells. The penalty applies only if the target is being encouraged, however, to advance its own ambitions. On a failure, the penalty is -2. On a critical failure, the target is overcome with ambition and takes whatever actions would advance its own agenda. This is the most open-ended, make the GM do weird things with their NPCs that I've ever seen in my life. That even on a good day will debuff intimidation checks, diplomacy checks, will saves again against suggestion. It gives us a more offensive option for the skill gorillas talking bits. We do like our charisma quite a bit on this build. It will eventually become maybe not the biggest thing in our repertoire, but it will be up there. Then Basic Wizard Spellcasting, then expert cleric spellcasting, then arcane breath, then arcane school spell for divination to add diviner's sight to our repertoire. Roll a d20. When one willing living creature attempts a non-secret saving throw or skill check, it can use the number you rolled instead of the number they rolled, or you can use it to reveal secret checks for a little more insurance that's on flavor for the people that run around and keep us from getting murdered. Then master cleric spellcasting, then quicken spell for the wizard. You get a skill feat every level. I think we want to push towards legendary skills in intelligence and wisdom, though you could also make legendary skills out of your strength-based stuff, which will always have a lower number to just have a more balanced plate. It's up to you. As are, other than that, skill training at level 1, the majority of your skill feats. For the ancestry feats, at level 1, cooperative nature gives you a +4 circumstance bonus, which is huge in 2nd edition on checks to aid, which is the other half of the skill gorilla. There's probably going to be someone at the table who's also really good, in our case, say, at rolling arcana checks. The skill gorilla can, in this scenario, take a little bit of spotlight away from them, which can feel bad. So sometimes you just gotta make sure you're aiding. A DC of 20 should eventually become arbitrarily easy for all of our big skills and a lot of our small skills as well, frankly, to reach as a really good mechanical way to throw the spotlight to someone else. Next, inspire imitation from the half-elf stuff. When you critically succeed at a skill check, you automatically qualify to do what we just talked about when attempting to help an ally use the same skill, even without spending the action. Say you just really need to jump across a chasm. There's no other way. You knew this would be coming. You can make it. But the bard can't, especially considering we could be expert by now in athletics. If we knew we would be jumping, this could theoretically be a +3, which could theoretically be life and death for people. Multi-talented next, of course, choosing wizard, then bounce back. So once per day, we don't increase the value of our wounded condition due to losing the dying condition. Then nimble elf, because I feel like we've got everything in-house we needed. Why not? Sure. Let's run a little faster about it. For the general feats, incredible initiative. First, we want to make sure we go first so we can figure out what the hell is going on. Then toughness and die hard because you still want to be tough and don't die. Then fleet, then canny acumen for our fortitude save. For our key items, if I'm perfectly honest with you, rather than list out every single solitary thing that can give an item bonus to skill checks, because there are a lot of them, I think what I'll do instead is point you to this link to the Pathfinder 2nd edition subreddit, because the Kel has been wonderful and put them all on a nice table for us. Get what you need from there. For our spell casting, we're gonna have a bunch of spells. We really are. There's no other way to say that one. The majority of the spells we are going to be talking about come from our divine list and are specifically granted by Zols. It's why we chose her. At level 1, share lore passes lore the plot out to eventually the whole party, and eventually the whole party for a long time. Hypercognition, for 1 action, use up to 6 recall knowledge checks as part of casting the spell. When you really need that natural 20 and nothing else, rolling 6d20 will hopefully get you there. If it didn't, you were destined to not know that. This is the in your back pocket when I really need to stick the natural 20. Do this. Retrocognition, one of the reasons we took Cleric first, as it's a 7th level spell, and I wanted to make sure we could definitely reach up to Master Cleric spellcasting. At a 1-minute cast, thank you Zols, you get psychic impressions from events that occurred where you are standing, revealing impressions, metaphors, cryptic clues, details. Traumatic events may hurt you. This spell is sustained. When we first gain access to it, we'll be reaching back days, gods, centuries at 9th level would be really cool, but we just barely don't get there. If this is dual class, you get there, but it's not, unfortunately. However, I think sustaining back years will probably grab you everything you need for plot purposes. JK, there are some APs printed where you would want the centuries. Whatever, it's fine. Take your years and be happy. Then, of course, guidance for that +1 status bonus to all the things, eventually turning into the much better heroism, lasting for 10 minutes, eventually for us heightening to a +2 status bonus on attack rolls, perception checks, saving throws, and skill checks. And yeah, there stands the build. Like I said at the beginning, I suppose I'll say at the end, this is a very paint on a wide canvas, then fill in your choices. You could have just as easily not been wisdom focused, had a very high dexterity, and then been very good at stealth, thievery, acrobatics, then eventually as a half-elf taking multi-talented as a cleric, not needing to meet the wisdom prerequisite, or taking something else entirely. This build should be very good at recalling all of the knowledge about all of the things. Additionally, we'll be able to get along in the wild. We'll be able to battle medicine really easily, or, with that divine spell list, just flat heal you. We'll be able to pick out finer details when combat inevitably breaks out. If we knew we were fighting that day, we could very easily have prepped offensive spells in our wizard's spellbook, and then just had enchantments and illusions in under normal circumstances from scrolls we purchased for on our normal days when we just want to get inside people's head for information. Really got to live that balanced lifestyle, but that's all the time I have for today. What do y'all think? How do we feel about our skill monkeys in 2e? How do you go about getting all the skills trained at level 1? Let me know down in the comments as always. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.